Story 1. Chronic migraine and cluster headaches with episodes of blindness. Irritable bowel syndrome. Not appreciating my own self-worth. Too selfless. Large feet. Story 2. Too soft. Too caring. Cannot stand up for myself. Hate being this way now as it is getting out of hand and people keep taking advantage. Does anyone have suggestions to change? Story 3. Not inspired. Tired of everyone's problems. None of my hopes for the world came close to reality. I am nearly blind and have diabetes, which is difficult to manage. I could have looked like Superman, but the damage was done in my early teens. Story 4. Undiagnosed autism and lack of therapy and support when I was younger made it difficult for me to manage. Thankfully, my child was diagnosed in school and received appropriate services. So hopefully, he will not have to face the challenges I experienced growing up. Story 5. I am a 33-year-old autistic agoraphobic transgender man who works at a nonprofit that assists people with severe mental illness and substance use disorder. The organization also runs community programs such as a food pantry. It is woefully underfunded, understaffed, and overworked during a time when the administration of the United States sees homelessness as a crime, more so than previous administrations which also saw homelessness as a crime. The administration of the United States views mental illness as equivalent to criminal behavior. The administration of the United States perceives transgender people as criminally offensive. The administration of the United States considers nonprofits that help people with substance use disorder, instead of incarcerating them, to be bad. The administration of the United States considers nonprofits that help people with mental illness, instead of incarcerating them, to be bad. I am dating and planning to marry a man of Mexican descent who will likely face immigration and customs enforcement intervention at some point, regardless of his citizenship, because immigration and customs enforcement frequently detains people of color regardless of identification or circumstances. So take your pick. Story 6. I have been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and later schizoaffective disorder. It is expected to worsen with age. Right now, I am aware of my condition, but the medication is keeping me stable. Someday in the future, I may not recognize my condition and will simply live with it. My future may involve living in a care facility. I am concerned about this. For now, I try to enjoy whatever time I have left as a mentally stable person due to the medication. Story 7. My good looks, muscular body, and large hands and feet make me popular with women. I find it very tiresome. Story 8. I really do not know how to deal with my emotions, especially sadness and grief, so I keep pushing them down. Story 9. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which affects my short-term memory. I am incredibly forgetful. For example, I want to drink a beer, I put it in the freezer, and then I forget about it. When I remember, it is already too late. I had to clean our freezer 6 times last year. I lose things because I do not remember where I put them. I waste many hours searching for items. I also have to replace things because I lose them. I had to replace my lockers 4 times in 1 year. Story 10. I'm perpetually stuck waiting for conditions to improve. When I graduated from college with a bachelor's degree, I went into the family business. I went through the whole process of learning what it's like on the front line in construction and earning my way, only to face a frivolous lawsuit that destroyed the company after an 11-year legal battle. It will get better when this is over, when we are vindicated or whatever. The end result was 11 years of appeals on top of appeals and mountains of legal fees, including additional lawsuits against insurance companies. But not to worry, the company may die, but the family still has some assets, so I am tasked with winding down projects to keep us afloat a little longer. We still have the family ranch and the rock quarry we lease out, which provide guaranteed income. As it turns out, the company that I owned part of paid for it, but it was in my father's name, so I received nothing from it. I wrote him a check for all I had so he would transfer a portion of ownership to me, but 5 years later I received part of the money back with excuses that it didn't work out and the lawyer or estate planner delayed everything. He said, "Trust me, I know what I'm doing." That money was enough to pay for graduate school, and I ended up getting a job in another field. The company experienced turnover due to COVID, and I was asked to take on an additional assignment temporarily. It will get better once they staff back up and I can get off the 2 jobs, 1 paycheck situation. Surely I would be recognized and promoted, but no. 3 full years of being overworked and then told my error rate is too high to justify a promotion. My father is famous for promising a distribution from the ranch property, but it never happens. Every year he fails to pay taxes as they come and ends up fighting the Internal Revenue Service over it. If you owe $100,000 in taxes, how much did you make? Where did it go? I'm 50 now. I gave my life for my family, believing I would sacrifice now, prove my worth, and it would pay off in the end. Still waiting, struggling to get by, and putting 2 kids through college, 1 done and 1 halfway through. My wife and I live on about $75,000 a year with 1 college-age child who has a rare disease and requires constant doctor appointments and treatment. My self-confidence is shattered, and I cannot imagine risking my health insurance benefits for my daughter by trying to change jobs. Besides, my job frustrates me and pays poorly, but it is a worthy and rewarding field. Frankly, I am waiting for my father to die. It is a dynamic he has cultivated over the years, but it makes me feel awful, even if he is a terrible person whose entire personality is based on pretending to be good. So we wait. Things will improve. Eventually, maybe. Story 11. I am intelligent, have been told I am humorous, and I used to be attractive, but more than 20 years of obsessive-compulsive disorder completely sabotaged my life, and I have accomplished mostly nothing by my early 40s. Story 12. Avoidant people make me anxious, and anxious people make me avoidant, so I am constantly in a stalemate. Story 13. I place myself somewhere on the high-functioning side of autism, apparently. Part of me is not sure if I belong there because I was masking, but that is beside the point. The part that is difficult is that I know how and why I am struggling socially, yet despite my best efforts, I still cannot come across as normal or stop myself from certain behaviors. I sometimes see it as a form of locked-in syndrome, since it is like knowing you are powerless in situations that people can normally change. This leads to feelings of loneliness and grief from knowing that if I could change things, I would be much better off. Story 14. My coordination disability makes me very clumsy, and I get fatigued using my right side for fine motor activities. I did not learn how to cut food properly until I was 23. I grew up with my parents telling me that nothing was wrong with me and that everyone sees a neurologist once a year. Story 15. I have no friends. I have work acquaintances, but everyone I have considered a friend ends up not wanting to hang out outside of work. I try to overcompensate by buying things or paying for food to get people to like me, but then they distance themselves because it seems strange that I know what they like. No, I just pay attention and thought it would be something you like. Story 16. Tinnitus. I miss silence, but in reality, it is not that bad. If this is my biggest issue, I feel like I am winning in life. Story 17. Health issues and the state of existence today. I hate how divided people are everywhere. They argue over differences like religion, race, and political views. We should celebrate our similarities instead of focusing on our differences. Only then will we be able to overcome this world of inversion and harmful agendas. Story 18. I am anxious, over-emotional, insecure, clingy, and needy while at the same time being overly independent, distant, and highly confident about some things. I might have a split personality. Story 19. I make things worse for myself by sulking and being locked in my head instead of facing my feelings and talking about them with people I care about. Story 20. I have trouble dealing with negative emotions, mainly stress. I can get upset in a heartbeat, and it can take literal hours or sometimes a whole day for me to calm down. Story 21. I feel like I might have avoidant attachment, or maybe I just have commitment issues. I really do not know. Story 22. To the point where I wish my country had medical assistance in dying like Canada does. If nobody wants me to live anywhere, fine. Just let me make an appointment and I will not be out on the street. Story 23. A 6'2", 220-pound man with a soft voice. Most of the time, people need to ask me to repeat myself 2 to 3 times. My grandfather has the same voice, and I have tried training it, but it does not carry well. When a friend tells me to repeat myself, I am practically yelling. Story 24. Sometimes I feel like French fries. Everyone loves them, but no one orders them as a main course. That's just me. I'm not anyone's first choice. Story 25. The worst thing about being yourself is when people expect you to live up to their standards. You are honest with yourself and they are not, and that can lead to criticism, misunderstanding, and loneliness. Story 26. What bothers me the most? Out of the whole list, I would say my skin. I had terrible acne growing up, and it damaged my face significantly. Before I was 13, I had very clear skin, but as my teenage years progressed, I developed rosacea, acne, and oily skin, which persists to this day. It is absolutely frustrating. Story 27. I have developed a very unusual skill set, which could bring me significant leverage, but the environment where I would thrive does not exist. Story 28. Despite doing my absolute best, it really does not matter what I am doing. It is still never going to be enough. Also, I am receiving constant criticism and passive-aggressive comments and behavior, even though I have done nothing to deserve it. Just my existence is apparently offensive. Story 29. I am old, and my relatively high resistance to damage means that I get to feel my body slowly falling apart before enjoying the sweet release of death. That is if I do not succumb to senile dementia like my mother. Story 30. I'm not rich. Why couldn't I be born in some alternate reality where I was? Why do I feel guilty when I spend money, even if it's on something I need, want, or that makes me happy, like for Christmas or a birthday? If I were rich, I wouldn't feel so bad when it comes to money. I hate the constant guilt of being given money as a gift or having to spend it and feeling awful about it. If I were rich, I wouldn't be careless with it like celebrities who say, "Oh my God, global warming, protect the environment, use paper straws, not plastic," and then take a 20-minute private jet ride to local shops instead of a 30-minute drive, making everything they complain about much worse. I would do normal things like buy my relatives more birthday and Christmas presents and make other people feel joy and happiness. And yet, here I am. You can argue if you want, but I believe money can buy happiness. And if I were rich, I'd be a lot happier. Story 31. Always being either the smartest or the dumbest in the room, and it is a complete coin toss which is which. Story 32. My compulsion to spend money has not hurt me financially because I earn a lot. However, if I practiced delayed gratification, I could be saving and investing that money and have much more. Now that I say that, I guess it is hurting me financially in a way. Story 33. Chronic illness, people pleaser, and even though I try to be upfront and honest with people, everything I say is misinterpreted as either embarrassing, strange, or uncomfortable. I kind of just want it all to end. Nobody seems to want me around anyway. Story 34. I am lousy at actively and spontaneously appreciating all the good parts of my life, to the point of being a jerk. I hate it about myself. Story 35. I am standing in my own way because of my insecurities and anxiety. I am struggling to deal with my newly earned freedom after childhood trauma. Story 36. Everyone has their own struggles, and what is most difficult varies from person to person. For many, it might be overthinking, feeling misunderstood, battling self-doubt, or carrying invisible pressure to have everything figured out. Would you like to share what it is for you? Story 37. I have never had a sense of ownership of anything because my mother always made me share what was mine. Therefore, I never grew attached to anything. Story 38. The ability to remove people from my life without thought or feeling, no matter how close the relationship is. I fear this will be my reality. Unable to fully trust someone or maintain relationships to protect myself. Does anyone else relate? Story 39. Woe is me, personality. Expecting the worst even though I know God always has my back and takes care of me. Story 40. The worst part about being me is that I have to spend my infinite, godlike intellect answering questions like, what sucks the most about being you? For creatures who still lose their house keys and forget why they walked into a room. Story 41. I have pushed away people who have truly cared about me each time. My heart is big, but my actions are small. Story 42. I am too sensitive and I overthink. I feel ashamed when others notice it. It is exhausting how a small issue can ruin your entire day. Story 43. I just can't take a break from anything. I am very excited to get back to school. I am ready to face any academic challenge they bring. I have many ambitions. Story 44. The fact that I had a ton of contradictions and yet I contradict myself. Why? Because I am human and there is no freedom. Story 45. Right now, I am slowly extricating myself from a terrible marriage with an apathetic, avoidant partner who is pretending it is not happening and is not mature enough to discuss it calmly and respectfully. Otherwise, I think what is most difficult is the long list of things I want to do, see, and become, and the lack of unlimited funds and unlimited time to do so. Story 46. My stomach issues continue. My physical condition and blood work are excellent. My life is great, but I cannot eat a lot of enjoyable foods like pizza and wings. It is frustrating. Story 47. Analyzing every situation for the worst-case scenario. I guess the good thing is I have had a successful career as an analyst. Story 48. The worst part about being me is that my bank account and my dreams are on completely different levels. I guess they just do not talk to each other. Story 49. I overthink everything to the point where I will spend 20 minutes crafting the perfect text response to "hey," and then delete it all to just write "hey" back. But somehow I am still convinced the other person is analyzing my response time and punctuation choices. Story 50. I can be very neurotic and anxious and I do not like it. I know it can be overwhelming for people. I also have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and I do not know how much is my symptoms and how much is just me being lazy or using it as an excuse. Hey, look! My neuroticism on display. Story 51. I am a people pleaser. I am working on it, and I am aware of who I am and how I should improve myself. Story 52. Being so wonderful that everyone wants to meet me. Now you all, calm down and form an orderly queue. Story 53. Most of my decisions seem to be mistakes now, even though back then they felt completely right. I feel like a failure. Story 54. My chronic health conditions and body have been getting worse, even though I am only in my early 30s. This has been going on for about 8 years. Story 55. The people I love most keep dying. They have all had such tragic deaths. It is traumatic. I have carried over 5 immediate family members to their final resting place since 2019. It is very difficult. Story 56. If we are not counting physical pain, such as chronic headaches, it would be that I cannot ignore any sound. I pick up and pay attention to every single sound around me, all the time, 24/7. I have to manually filter everything by importance, and when I am trying to focus on an important sound, I am almost always distracted by other noises. It is very annoying. All the conversations in the office, all the babies screaming in the mall, all the coughs, sneezes, throat clears in the theater, murmurs, whispers, the sounds of shoes on the floor, office chairs wheeling around, and phones ringing. Even background noises like the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, cars driving by outside, the wind or rain. If someone is breathing with a stuffy nose, I hear that too. I get annoyed easily, especially by repetitive noises. I recognize patterns in speech because I hear everything, and people become annoying to me if they overuse words or phrases. I get overwhelmed in crowded spaces from all the different sounds and trying to process them all. It is exhausting. It drains me mentally. I am so sick of it, and I envy people who can tune things out. It never stops. Story 57. I only have 30% of my liver remaining, as the rest is occupied by 2 benign tumors. I fear they may become cancerous since my mother died of liver cancer 7 years ago. I feel like a ticking time bomb. Story 58. I got 4 types while on the field, 3 while off. On the field. The most egotistical, locked-in defender in Thailand. The best passer on the field. The freakiest player on the pitch. Or the one dying from laughter. I don't even know what I'm laughing about. Off the field. I can share almost anything and don't complain, but if you anger me, you might get insulted so much it's no longer just insulting. Or I can just be an egotist all day, not even on the pitch. Soccer, by the way. The worst part is that it's almost impossible to tell which one. Also, this all happens while being the freakiest smart dumbass of the year. Story 59. I kind of just exist by myself like a non-player character. I am desperate for love but never did much in my life to make myself interesting enough. Now I wish I had done more things in my life and talked more to people. Story 60. Oh, everything. I'm an idiot. No idea why people tolerate me. I keep telling them to end me, but they think I'm joking. Slightly awkward. If brain farts were a person, I'd be it. The only thing going in my favor is that I'm easy, just incapable of saying no to that. I can say no to other things and frequently do, when I haven't got my foot firmly wedged in my mouth. Story 61. Everyone has their own struggles, but one tough challenge might be constantly overthinking or feeling pressure to always have the right answer. What about you? What is something you find challenging? Story 62. Being unattractive, having no friends, no romantic relationships, constantly self-conscious, and too introverted to take action. Story 63. I seek clarity and I am often direct and firm, which can be mistaken for rudeness. Being misunderstood is frustrating. Story 64. I do not know how to ask for help, so I solve everything on my own and get very overwhelmed if I cannot succeed. Story 65. I have many hobbies. I need to decide which one to focus on. They are all expensive. I refuse to give any up. I just need more time. Story 66. My lack of motivation, I guess. My nature is to be as passive as possible and let things take their natural course. Story 67. My depression and lack of compulsion control led me to become a raging alcoholic for a while. I also got into heavy gambling for about a year. I am sober now and medicated with Zoloft. I am like a ship with no rudder. That being said, I have somehow managed an 18-year marriage, 2 children, and a 20-year career in information technology. It is true when they say you are your worst enemy. Story 68. My wife died 2 years ago. I loved her with everything that I am. She was the most wonderful person I have ever known. Story 69. I fall in love with women quickly and usually get heartbroken by women I date for 2 or 3 months. Every woman I have been with sexually has ended the relationship, including my ex-wife. Story 70. I have a nice face card, my degrees, and an amazing personality, but I am 5 feet 5 inches tall and weigh 90 pounds, so that is enough to hate myself. Story 71. Poor and unable to improve my situation despite working for 10 different companies. It is the slow season, and there is no work available. I should apply for a summer job. Story 72. I am too nice, always smiling or hoping to spread a little light. No one seems to care. I am also socially awkward, procrastinate too much, and tend to talk myself out of things. Story 73. I'm afraid to be vulnerable, and others being vulnerable makes me uncomfortable. Therefore, I can't tell when I am self-sabotaging or just setting a boundary. Story 74. It is pretty hard to make a living as a science fiction writer when literacy is declining, corporations and governments are actively working to ruin the economy and the internet, and people are losing interest in science fiction because they have seen the future and the future is disappointing. Story 75. I am the one everyone calls for help. I do not call anyone. If I did, I am not sure how they could help me with anything. It is rewarding in a way, but it is also lonely. Story 76. My obesity affects my sleep, and I have more health problems than ever. Type 2 diabetes runs in my family, but I am actively trying to turn my life around. I have lost 2 kilograms so far, and my skin is clearing up and glowing from all the vegetables I have been eating. Also, my friends are having children, and I am child-free by choice, so I am having trouble connecting with them. Story 77. I lost a large part of my pancreas and now have chronic pancreatitis. As a result, I am admitted to the hospital quite often and cannot have a normal life anymore. Additionally, my pancreas no longer produces enough insulin, so I have diabetes. My energy is also significantly reduced. Story 78. Sometimes being kind of pretty is difficult. The men are going to love you, and the women are going to dislike you, even before they get to know me. I am a very nice person. Story 79. I cannot seem to find the peace that I am looking for. While other factors play a role in this, I am becoming more aware that it is also an inability on my part. Story 80. A person decided to drive drunk, hit me and disabled me. They hit and ran. Then, a doctor's arrogance caused him to ignore protocols to keep patients safe. While performing an epidural steroid injection, he not only missed the epidural space but injected me with 3 times the steroids and lidocaine. For 8 hours afterward, I was paralyzed from the waist down. It left me with lifelong scar tissue in my spine, causing constant pain. I miss out on so much in life because of him. Story 81. Autism and complex post-traumatic stress disorder are challenging. I left a cult 5 years ago that my family had been part of for 4 generations. It has been difficult to process, but my therapist is very helpful. My wife has been experiencing severe long COVID symptoms since 2021, and there are days when it feels uncertain how much longer she will be here. We have 3 wonderful cats and 2 amazing puppies, and we live in a great neighborhood in a vibrant city. Story 82. People believe they can harass another person and still age gracefully afterward. This is because the concept of distance is unfamiliar to them, so they fill empty space with auditory hallucinations. Story 83. I constantly feel like I need more sleep. I would get so much done if I just got a bit more sleep. Story 84. I have post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. I have a good job, a nice house, and a wonderful family, but I cannot enjoy any of it. Story 85. Pick 1. Chronic asthma, chronic patellar tendinitis, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, major depressive disorder, or post-traumatic stress disorder. In my opinion, it is post-traumatic stress disorder or asthma. Story 86. Purely my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I view it as a superpower in some senses, and in others it is very debilitating. Cannot complain at all though. It is just an annoying thing. Story 87. I have a degenerative eye disease that is slowly robbing me of my vision. I became legally blind about 3 years ago. My world continues to close in around me, and there is no cure. On top of that, the burdens of being a father continue to get harder, as I want to do more for my family and children, but I am severely limited. On a daily or weekly basis, I find something new that I cannot do for or with my children, which I want to do. It will continue to the point where I may not know what they look like. I may not know what their children look like, and I will be in the dark. Other than that, life is good. I am glad I had the opportunities one did while I had them. Story 88. If I got out of my own way, I could be incredibly successful. But I am damaged now, and I do not think I see the light of success the same anymore. Story 89. Parents didn't get me tested for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism spectrum disorder. Instead, they just called me lazy and good for nothing. It turns out I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and am medicated, and who would have guessed? I'm not lazy. Well, to a certain extent I am, but we all are. Every day, I wonder how much farther in life I could be if I had been properly medicated in my middle and high school days. Instead, I am still playing catch-up in my education and career. Story 90. I genuinely think I am smarter in some way than most people I meet. Usually, that makes me dislike them and also makes me seem like a narcissistic jerk. I do not believe I would think like that if I were someone else, but it is what I am stuck with for now. Story 91. There is literally no way out for me. Depression, social anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder numb me. I am also lonely and feel hated by people in general. I have had attention deficit hyperactivity disorder since birth and a little bit of autism. I also cannot communicate well with other people. My life is difficult all around. Story 92. I have been overweight almost all my life, and whenever I lose weight for a while, I gain it all back again. I never got to wear any clothes I would like to, and now that I am in my 40s, I feel like it is too late for me. Story 93. I'm too quiet sometimes, in the sense that if I am getting mistreated or disrespected, I will just continue to be nice, smile, and do what I normally do. I always thought being nice and quiet would make most people leave you alone. Apparently, that is not true at all, as this last job has clearly shown me. I am like the front doormat. I wish I had the ability to stand up for myself a lot more, especially when I am being disrespected by stronger-willed individuals. Story 94. Crippling depression, suicidal thoughts without a plan, anxiety, multiple eating disorders, and likely a sexual addiction, all likely stemming from being sexually assaulted at 6 years old. Story 95. 26-year-old male not being happy despite having an amazing girlfriend, a high-paying job, a long-lasting group of friends, and a tremendous amount of travel experiences. Everything seems perfect yet empty. Story 96. I'm kind of just mean to people for no reason sometimes. I resent people for things I perceive instead of things they say, and on a bad day, I'm not fun to be around. I have been working on it for 10 years and have made a lot of progress, but I do not know if it will ever stop completely. Story 97. Depression and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I am a prisoner in my own mind. I have a great support system and a job that I love, but motivating myself to clean my apartment and keep it that way has been an uphill battle. Story 98. I always get ignored by men. I am unmarried with no children. The rest of my family and friends have families, so they have no time for me. I feel very lonely. Story 99. Inability to focus, hyperactivity, distressing intrusive thoughts, and gluten sensitivity are challenging. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and celiac disease are rough to manage. Story 100. I am happy being myself, but imagining a scenario where someone else steps into my life and personality. I analyze everything and make my own path. I do not do what is easy, popular, or brings positive attention. I do not mean I am intentionally contrary. I mean I seek whatever I think is true and best, regardless of what anyone else is doing. I am very solitary. Other people might find this very frustrating, lonely, and difficult. Feels very fulfilling to me. Story 101. I have Asperger's and a double depression diagnosis. A constant dysthymia followed by episodes of major depression. It hurts so much to be this lonely. Story 102. I go too hard on myself sometimes. Also, the fact that I can't save any money is frustrating. I don't know how I end up spending money somewhere down the rabbit hole. Story 103. I have chronic gastrointestinal issues and experience pain every day. There is more serotonin in the gastrointestinal tract than in the brain. No wonder I am always depressed. Story 104. Depression, anxiety, obesity. Sometimes it's hard for me to see the point of being here. My friends date, fall in love, get married, have children, and generally enjoy their lives. I am just here existing. Story 105. I am easily overwhelmed, an overthinker, and I eternally lack professional confidence. To summarize, I have had untreated anxiety since childhood. Story 106. I will bend over backwards, forwards, and sideways for the people I love, and now I feel like they take advantage of me. Story 107. Addiction. I have been sober from hard drugs for 2 years. I still struggle with not grabbing a six-pack of beer at least once a week and also smoking marijuana every day. However, I feel much better and healthier now. The beer and snacks are making me gain weight. I have gained about 80 pounds since cleaning up, as I was previously grossly underweight. Story 108. I am really scared of feelings. Anytime I like someone and we get closer, I just disappear. After that, I can talk to this person only when I feel that my feelings are calming down. None of them want to be with me because I am unpredictable. Story 109. The constant mind flickers to different things, subjects, projects, questions, ideas, and thoughts. My mind is always active with everything. It never stops. Story 110. Gastroesophageal reflux disease. Health anxiety. Being asexual. Being unable to make close, intimate friends. Not liking my physical appearance. But other than those things, life is pretty good. Story 111. Chronic pain started about 12 years ago, and I do not feel like I have been able to get a real answer on what causes it or how to treat it. Part of it is arthritis, but muscle aches, fatigue, and connective tissue issues make me think there is more going on. Every few years, I muster the physical and mental energy to try again to find someone willing to figure it out. But it usually ends up being a big nothing. Story 112. On a scale of 0 to 10, my baseline anxiety is about a 6. This is with medication and no active issues. It is a struggle to function most days. Story 113. Constant awareness is essential because very few people seem to have survival instincts. I am still alive because I pay attention to what is around me at all times. Story 114. Being alive. Also, the fact that the reason I became depressed is so silly to most people, they just judge me for it. Story 115. Biding my time. I find myself occupying my anxious mind with vices like coffee and rum, while doing what I can to support my family in the twilight of my widowed grandfather's days. At the same time, I am searching for a way to finance my work and interests and to finish my tattoos. Of all things, biding one's time is not much, but it is agony. Story 116. Getting attention does not come easily. If I could be an attention maximizer, then I could drive traffic to my store on Instagram and TikTok and become very successful. Just kidding. But on a more serious note, sometimes I feel I was born in the wrong decade. I miss the good old days when face-to-face human interaction was the norm, when people would ride streetcars and trams to work, and the street layout was a grid instead of cul-de-sac dead-end roads. Story 117. Anxiety, never knowing when to give up, loneliness, asthma, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. My attention span for doing tasks is poor, clinginess. Story 118. Constant pain and existential dread. My wife and cat are the only reason I continue navigating this mortal life. Story 119. For 21 years, I have felt uncomfortable in my skin and unattractive. Throughout my life, I have been made to feel like everything is wrong with me, and I cannot shake this feeling even at 26. Story 120. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 26 years, and I am barely mobile these days. I am housebound most of the time, and I experience significant bladder and bowel issues. Story 121. Having congenital heart disease. Trying to lose some weight, but the very high doses of low pressure make it harder. I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which I cannot treat because of the heart disease. I have no energy and have to have surgery every few years. My insurance is renegotiating with my hospital. It is just a lot of stress. Story 122. I have severe generalized anxiety disorder. I have been in therapy for years and am studying to become a therapist. I hope that through the combination of therapy for myself, learning about anxiety through coursework, and helping people work through their own mental health issues, I can improve my own condition. Story 123. I probably can't turn my brain off. Even when I'm trying to relax, I replay conversations, overthink tiny mistakes, and imagine every possible future outcome as if it is my job. Story 124. Being overweight. I have been overweight my entire life, and I hate it. I have been trying to lose weight for a long time, but for one reason or another, I just cannot seem to succeed. Story 125. My right eye does not work properly. It moves independently and sometimes makes people think I have special needs. Story 126. I am probably the most successful among my friends and university colleagues in their eyes, but I am a miserable failure to myself and my current situation. I did everything I dreamed of doing 10 years ago, but I feel like I should be in a much better situation by now. It is just not enough. Nothing is. Story 127. Normally, I am a very realistic and risk-averse man. However, the other day I decided to join in on something just as silly and fun as a few other people around me. Now I have torn some muscles in my rib area and can barely move. This always happens one way or another. I am frustrated. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.